Good morning, fantasy football fans. Happy Friday to everybody.
Good morning.
How are you?
Doing good. Doing great.
James?
Doing good. Bright and early, ready to go.
Bright and early.
Yeah. My dumb ass was up at like 5:30 this morning, so let's roll. A lot of coffee.
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 Well, thank you for joining us on this Friday edition of Getting Defensive, sponsored by Gridiron Ratings. Please go subscribe to our YouTube channel. We are giving away a subscription for every 50 subscribers we're giving one subscription away to the draft guide and the website, right?
Just the draft guide.
Which is whoever wins this, you're going to be amazed. Whoever buys it.
Yeah. The only thing you got to do is
Definitely.
we just got done. Let's see, what was Wednesday's date? The 21st. Yeah. Check it out on our YouTube channel. You'll be able to sit there and Jeff came on, our founder of Gridiron Ratings, and it's a digital thing. We have highlights, previews, and everything. It's right online. It's always going to be updated. It's a great one. It's not like a magazine you buy and then after a bunch of changes over this off season, it's no good. It will be updated. I don't want to put a market value on it, but these free subscriptions that we're going to be giving out are a great value to win. So, go do that for us. Hit subscribe. Help us build our channel up.
Absolutely. We have some rookie talk this morning, some teams in need of some defensive players we're going to talk about, teams we think that might address IDP early. So hard to guess, but.
Yeah. I think our main angle will probably, at least mine, and I think me and James was talking about that just a little while ago, was that we're going to look at the teams that are more defensive player needy, which translates into IDP opportunities for us. If these teams, whoever they draft, whether it's a hyped rookie or not a hyped rookie, if they address these guys in the top half of the draft, then we're going to have to pay attention because their defensive squads could stand the help at that position, if that makes sense. And believe it or not, this is something in the past that I have used to my advantage. In the past, I've always been one of those types of guys that before I go, all right, saying that I like this rookie, I wait, and I think, James, you're on the same page. We wait and see where they fall in the draft, and this a lot of times, usually we get an opportunity to get somebody that was completely under the radar pre-draft because of where they fell, the situation, the opportunity they have, and a lot of times they might not be complete studs, granted, but they become kind of a breakout player for us just based off their opportunity. So I've used this to my advantage and been able to suggest to people here and there to help them out. You hit every once in a while, you miss every once in a while. But I think these are definitely, we're going to talk about the positions and the teams that could use these positions. And just for people, keep it in mind when you're watching the draft next weekend. Oh, wow, they took such and such player. Who's this dude? And at defensive line, why would they pick him so high? Well, just look at the roster. They probably need the competition in the, hey, it's potentially a player that could make an impact. Who knows? So.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely. And we subscribe from the same book of the player's skill obviously matters, but landing spot matters so much more than a lot of people want to think, and a lot of film hounds are willing to admit. Mm-hmm. Someone who lands in a great spot does great. Someone who lands in a mediocre spot might do mediocre. And sure, sometimes the cream does rise to the crop and elite talent shines through. You can look on the offensive side of the ball with a guy like A.J. Brown, but more often than not, it doesn't. It's because the sport is so play-based, so coaching staff-based, and draft spot matters. And frankly, I don't care what someone's profile looks like. They need to be on a team that can treat them well and help them grow. Otherwise, They never reach that potential. And if they don't reach that potential and you're playing fantasy sports, they're useless to you. So, yes, landing spot matters a ton. Everything we talk about, every player we talk about, it's always going to be what's the landing spot. And I know a lot of people don't like to hear that because all pre-draft talk is this guy's so talented, his measurables are so great.
Right.
But the reality is what team is he on? That matters more than anything.
Right. Yeah. And we just mentioned it earlier too when we were talking before the thing. Jordan Brooks for Seattle was one of them. You know, he went to Seattle. If he was on any other roster last year, he'd been a starter, or not any other, but most of any other. Same thing with Walker in Atlanta. He could have been a starter. I'm going to go as far as Ty Dye or Day or whatever his name is in Minnesota. He was highly touted. He slipped down the board to Minnesota, and Minnesota is not known to start rookie IDP guys anyways, or defensive players. So Eric Wilson got the call. So, there are some players out there. You might even suggest Logan Wilson might have had a better year if he had a better landing spot. So we're dead on, James. That's one thing that me and you do see eye to eye. Well, I'm personally trying to get a little bit more wrapped up into this rookies. It's a little tough right now. We got a lot going on at Gridiron Ratings, folks, and I'll tell you, y'all ought to jump on this because we got a bunch of great writers. We've got a bunch of great talent, people who just joined us this year, and we've got so much getting ready to hit this off season that we don't want you to miss out on it. So please join us. I'll quit rattling on.
All
Somebody
right.
else.
So we want to talk about the teams basically first in need of, say, a linebacker, say Micah Parsons. Who are the top 3 teams you guys think are going to snag him? And he's going to go quick.
James, let's make sure we're on the same page. We're talking inside linebacker here.
Yeah, I think so. Let's go with that.
Okay. Well, you want me to start?
Yeah, go for it.
All right. So I basically, I went through the whole draft order and all that. Of course, draft order doesn't really matter per se as much as what their team needs are. So, believe it or not, I don't know. This is an arguable list. Probably. I mean, some are flat on, right outstanding needing linebacker, but I've got the Broncos. I know Johnson and Jewell did okay last year, but if you look at the depth, they have another kid. I think his name is Stewart, that he got hurt early last offseason, and he might be back in the fold. But talking about somebody making an impact this year, I personally think Johnson or Jewell could be replaced if they drafted the right guy high enough. The Chiefs inside Jordan Hicks is terrible. They have Willie Gay. They got him last year. He had limited opportunities last year to play. He did okay. He definitely is on the radar, but I mean, the Chiefs are in need of some linebackers, and anybody could stand up. The Packers situation is all up in the air. Will it be Barnes? Will it be I'm trying to think of the other guy's name. There was a rookie from last year. I think it was like a 4th or 5th round. But that's it. You got Ty Summers or somebody. So I really think the Packers, might shock some people because they did not sign anybody this offseason yet as a free agent. And they might surprise us there and pull somebody in to compete with Barnes and them. I have more on the list. Should I keep going? I got 3 more.
Let James do some.
Yeah, I'll throw some names out in the hat. I think Indy is a team that really just needs to do everyone on their defense outside of their secondary. So linebackers, one, I thought Anthony Walker was going to return. When he didn't, it was a little surprising to me. As a Browns fan, I took it. But I think that's a place that people could go. Like you mentioned, Kansas City, they definitely need someone on the inside. They're a team that needs to compete now, so they need to plug someone in that can play right away versus someone they want to build over a season or two. So that could be someone who's going a little bit earlier than a lot of people are thinking, because most people think they're going to address offense first and foremost. Also, I quietly think Detroit needs one. Jamie Collins isn't exactly a young, spry lad anymore. He's getting up there in age. And yeah, Detroit needs one, but they also probably need some other positions as well. They could use an edge rusher. Their wide receivers are atrocious. So those are the names that really come to my mind first. Also, kind of like the Rams, I know they don't have an early pick, but if they did decide to go and acquire an early pick, they might be taking a linebacker.
And that's one. I got them on the list here. They were actually the next one. Yeah, and that's one that's everybody's. Well, what about what was his name? Michael McKell or whatever his name was last year. I tell you, the guy's not good. The guy was not good. They did not. Corey Littleton prior to that outperformed his draft status. Matter of fact, I think he was undrafted. So they hit the lottery with him when he was with the Rams. He did that job well or served that purpose well. But last year, so that wouldn't be shocking to see the Rams try to reach somehow and get one, or even right at that fourth round or something. I think a fourth rounder could probably compete if it's the right guy. So to throw a couple other little names out there, Washington. Bostic's not all that great. You got Holcomb. He's questionable. He did show well last year, but it's a couple teams to keep an eye on. And then, of course, Philly. I'm not impressed with the Eric Wilson signing at all. I like Singleton, but that is only because I liked him as a breakout last year. I'm not gonna stoke my fire on bringing him out, but either way. So, those are all good teams. If you see a linebacker fall at those positions or at those teams, pay attention. Get them on your radar. Let's see who they are. Let's get through mini camp if we have one, whatever the off-season events are. And they can definitely – and Detroit is definitely one. Detroit might be even higher up on there. Don't let me forget, when we get through this list real quick, I've got a question for you, James, or Roxanne too. So
sounds good to me.
Right.
I also want to throw out there, I do think that Arizona is another one. The first defensive position that they address, I think, will be inside linebacker. I know, again, it's a team where everyone's looking at offense. They want to go grab a tight end, grab another running back, grab another wide receiver. But I think they might surprise some people and go linebacker a lot earlier than anyone's thinking. And if they do, there's a path to playing time right away there. So that's just another team to keep an eye on.
So who would you suspect if they drafted high, who would be out of the fold? Simmons or Hicks?
I think Hicks. I don't think that they love him. His production's been solid, but I think that he could be seeing his way out. And I also think that Simmons might be moving around. He might not just sit at one position if they like what he's done with the playbook. I just think that Arizona, they might be thinking linebacker a lot more than we're thinking they're thinking linebacker.
Yep. So, hey, I can see it. I've never been a Jordan Hicks fan. Of course, he's done all right for IDP occasionally. He used to be on my avoid list at all costs, him and Known Alexander, because of their injury history. But Hicks had kind of straightened that out here with Arizona. But I agree. He's more of a coverage linebacker to begin with. He was productive a couple of years ago, but it's nothing that can't be replaced with a better run stopper. And, it's just that they're in a situation with Buda Baker back there. And, Simmons has got speed. They don't need the coverage linebacker as much as they could really have some bully up there stopping that run. So,
exactly.
And I like that.
All right. So we're good. Or do you want to ask your question now?
No, I'll do it at the end.
Okay.
All right.
So then we're going to move on to edge rusher.
Edge rusher. Your turn.
Yeah, I'll start off with edge. I mentioned this a few podcasts ago, but the Indianapolis Colts need to get an entire new defensive line, and that includes everyone on every side edge rushing, so both edges. I think that they have to address that first and foremost in the draft. They're just not a team I like at all because I think that their defense is really going downhill, and I think Carson Wentz is awful. So I think they really need to get an edge rusher in there. That's my main thought. Atlanta can use an edge rusher as well. They've lost McKinley. Vic Beasley ended up being absolute junk. There's not a lot of love there. So I think that they could address that very early in the draft, especially if they decide to trade out of 4. Or I think it's possible that they might decide to go and fall in love with an edge rusher and take one at 4. I know that that's pretty much a shock value thought process, but I think it's possible. I don't think it's going to happen, but I initially mock that, and I think that it could happen, especially if they decide to move out. Also, Baltimore needs edge rushers. They're
Big
another
time.
defense that's just kind of struggling along.
Yeah.
And also, I think Buffalo might address the position very early, and those are really the big ones that come to mind.
Yep. I agree on every one of them. And even though we talk about Taquan Lewis, I do think that Taquan Lewis might have a chance to come up with the Colts. I think it's do or die. It's his fourth year. He's going to have a chance. I think he's going to get more of an opportunity. Whether he does it or not, I don't know. But there is always room. And then on the other side, you need more than one edge rusher. So, yeah, definitely. What's his name? Hunter? No. Yeah.
Yeah,
What's the old guy? Yeah, I don't even think he's returned to the team as far as I know. I might be a little bit loose.
Oh, you mean Justin Houston?
Oh, Justin Houston. Did he re-sign again this year? I can't remember.
As far as I'm aware, which I haven't been paying attention to the Justin Houston news feed, but I think he's still a free agent and he's still considering going back to the Colts, but the match has not been made yet.
Right. Yeah. But either way you look at it, the only sure thing there is Buckner. So if there's any, if they have a downfall, that would probably be their first one to address. Bills definitely, they haven't had a decent pass rusher. A real pass rusher in years. They've been relying on Jerry Hughes for a long time, and he peaked like 5 years ago or something. It seems like Bills definitely, they could use some interior help too, a little better quality talented. The Ravens definitely, their idea is they blitz 55-60% of the year. So they just figure if they throw bodies at it, but they definitely need an upgrade at talent to do that, to really come off with a good edge rusher. Falcons, devastated. Yes, definitely believe Falcons. They need something there, but we'll have to see if they actually go there, because the Falcons have so many other needs, I think. The Chiefs, I've been so disappointed in Frank Clark as an edge rusher overall. He all mouth. He only shows up when he really needs to. I think the Chiefs could really stand some help out on the edge. And then, of course, other than Hunter up with the Vikings, it's a possibility, but more likely if they approach it and they get a hold of somebody in that top first round, they're not going to hold as much value as, say, Hunter, as long as Hunter's back full healthy and playing all year. So, that would be a late one. So I think we covered it.
Yeah, I just want to ask James who he thinks like the top 2 or 3 edge rushers he thinks will go first.
Yeah, I've mocked 3 going early. I've got Kwity Paye going to the Colts, Ojulari going over to the Ravens, and then Jalen Phillips going to the Bills. That's what I think. Obviously, I'm not an expert on guys coming out of college, so if a different edge rusher goes, that's fine in my book, because I don't really know the difference between the two. I just pay attention off of landing spot. So that's 3 teams that I think will address edge rushing specifically in the first round. Obviously, it's a mock draft. Obviously, it'll be very, very wrong come those picks, but that's what I think right now.
Do you think those will be the top or first 3 that'll go?
I do, unless Atlanta trades out. I think if they do, they're going to take the first edge rusher off the board, because they'll probably pick up a late 8, 9, something like that, or early teens pick, and then they'll be able to snag the first guy.
You think they're going to trade with Denver is what you're saying?
I think that it's beyond likely that they trade with Denver if Denver wants to go up. So I think that's possible. I also think the Eagles might do something crazy and get up there as well. I think that's a very bad idea for the Eagles to trade picks to move up. But I think it's very Eagles to do that, so I think it's possible.
Exactly. All right. Those would be in the top 5 for sure. I was just seeing what your list was. Yep. So then we're going to go to a safety. Who needs safeties?
I'll start out. I'm going to say that when I was going through this, researching for this, I think safety might be the least overall needed across the board in the NFL right now. They have had a plethora of safeties come out over the last 4 or 5 years. It's pretty stacked. Most teams have very serviceable, maybe not the best, but very serviceable veterans. So I don't necessarily think that, we might see like one or two of these safeties come off that'll land in the right spot, but we might see a few of these in this draft that do get drafted fall in line behind some veterans. The first team that come to mind for me is I think the Bears could use a strong safety. I think the Eagles could possibly address safety. I want to say Raiders could also, but I think Raiders could almost afford to draft anything on IDP. When they didn't make my top edge or my top linebacker, but I think the Raiders, they really need to address some better players on their defense. I believe it or not, I'm not a Tart fan or Jimmy Wilson or whatever his name is, a free safety. So I think the 49ers could stand to do that if they had the luxury to. And then we got Donovan Wilson with the Cowboys. I'm not sure. We know that Neal is going to be playing weak inside linebacker. They might do it in a way that maybe they could. I think Wilson was actually originally a free safety in college. So before he played strong safety for the Cowboys last year. So I think the Cowboys might be interesting. You have Jacksonville. They might. I think that's about it. Jets possibly, but we'll talk more about the Jets after a bit when I have that question.
Yeah, I agree first and foremost with what you're saying about safety being a position that is not very needy in the NFL right now. I think the majority of teams either A, like their safeties and don't really see it as a place to address, or B, they're treating safeties as kind of the defensive running back in that you can get someone pretty cheap off of free agency and you don't need to spend that draft capital to get one when the free agent capital to go acquire one isn't a lot of money. So I think safety is a position that is in general being treated kind of with kid gloves in terms of team building. And you want to invest more in an edge rusher, in a defensive back who's out on the outside, cornerback, and leaving safeties to being more low draft capital investments or free agent guys. I do think Tennessee might go out and address their safety needs. I don't really like what's going on back there. Buffalo's getting super old, so I think that's another place that can go. And frankly, the offensive side of their ball is excellent, so they can just address defense for the whole draft if they felt like it, and still come away looking very good with the overall team needs. Also think that the Panthers might decide to go safety, and I also agree with you that San Francisco needs one drastically, but they also kind of need a lot of different things on defense, including cornerbacks. So I'm not sure how early they'll take one, but I don't think there's going to be any safeties going in the first round. I'll throw that out there right now. And I think there'll be maybe a few going in the top half of the second round, but I don't think anyone's really going to pay up to go get their guy because it's not a position to pay up and go get somebody at.
Yeah. A few years ago, I mean, it might have been more than 4 or 5 years ago, but my past history, safety was a hot commodity, and the NCAA has just really been cranking them out at high quality, between those and the new hybrid type of linebackers. So it's just, you're kind of flushed right now in the NFL with quality type safeties, and a lot of these teams are set. On Tennessee, real quick, I'm kind of a Hooker. His name's Hooker fan. Yeah, Hooker fan for Tennessee. I think he has an opportunity to fill the spot or take on more of a role this year in place of Vaccaro. You're not impressed? Or you just think they still need that other guy?
Yeah, I think he has the opportunity to do that right now. I think internally the team doesn't see him as the guy to go ahead and just have that spot. They're going to want to bring in someone to give him competition. Also, maybe be the guy to take over for Kevin Byard when Kevin Byard's time in the NFL runs out. So I think addressing that early matters. And I also don't think that they have a lot of needs elsewhere. So they can decide to spend a pick pretty early. And if they spend a pick pretty early and nobody goes in the first round, they're getting a pretty good safety.
Yep. Cool. Just curious what your thoughts were on him.
And do you want to name some of these safeties that you like?
Don't look at me.
I'm looking at James. I know.
Yeah, I mean, I think Andre Sisco's real good. I think Trayvon Moehrig, if I'm even pronouncing his name right, from TCU's, a solid guy. Javon Holland from Oregon, Richie Grant over at Central Florida, Paris Ford over in Pittsburgh. Those are the top guys I have on my board. But I'm always hesitant to talk about who I like before there's a landing spot because, frankly, I don't watch that much college football. I see some highlights. I decide, those are nice, but everyone's highlights are nice. You got to give me the full package. And I don't invest the time to look at the full package. I'm not a film guy. So in general, I just kind of look at the big boards, see some highlight films and go, yeah, that works. Let's see where they land.
Let's be honest here real quick with a break. Okay, so me and James are on the same book. That was one thing that when me and James had our first conversation that I struck a chord with him was the fact that, it's not that I don't know about James. I don't have anything against rookies, but they should be treated as a luxury. And I understand that the offseason is a great time. It's the rookie and the rookie hype, the draft, and all the talk is what carries us through the offseason for fantasy football. It's if it wasn't for this, we would talk about some free agent signings and then it would be over with. Right, or injuries or something. So, I appreciate all the hard work that there are other people out there focusing on the rookies a lot harder than, say, me and James are. I appreciate that work, but let's be realistic about it. It will consume the entire 6-7 months of the off season. But by the time we get to the second week of the regular season, you're hearing one or two names.
Right.
You go from talking 100 guys constantly reaching, plugging, going over and over. Folks, again, it's not that I have anything personal against them. Just treat these rookies like luxuries. I don't care if all of a sudden Parsons gets picked the first pick by somebody trading up and traded all their draft picks to get him at first pick or any of these players. For one, this IDP class is not as good as the last few years. For the second reason is that they're a luxury. And if you build your even your dynasty, in my opinion, if you build your dynasty rosters around these guys specifically, you're probably not going to make it.
Right.
Your odds are stacked up against you. Make these players be in the system and make them prove that they are worthy to have on your roster. I'd rather go pay out the butt for a second or a third year or fourth year guy on a dynasty league. I'd rather pay out the butt to acquire him in a trade or something, or just get him in redrafts. Then it's easy enough. But than I would to rely on any amount of rookies to get the job done.
Right.
Yeah.
It's very rare.
And I agree with you completely. There's a lot of age fetish going on in dynasty football. It's understandable. People want to build this empire, build this team where they drafted 10 guys and all 10 become the studs of that draft. But the reality is when you have 10 rookie picks and you're in your rebuilding phase, you hit on 4 of them. 4 of them are mediocre replaceable, and 2 of them bust. And that's if you have a good success rate. And if that happens, you've just built yourself a normal-looking roster that you could have had 2 years ago before you decided to rebuild. A lot of people miss the forest for the trees and go and dive in and go into this hype, and they love every rookie, and they're drafting all these guys and trading for all these picks and building the perfect team on paper to win week 1.
Mm-hmm.
And then once week one's over, everything's shifted, everything's changed. They don't have any assets to move anyone, and it just falls apart.
Mm-hmm.
And like you said, IDP rookies especially are luxuries. They don't peak until their second or third year.
Mm-hmm.
On the offensive side, that's usually how it works for every position outside of running back. Running back is its own unique breed because the life cycle of that position is so short.
Mm-hmm.
But don't take the life cycle of that position and apply it elsewhere. If you want to draft an IDP, if you want to go grab Parsons, you can go grab him. If you've got a pick and you want to go invest in him, sure. But you're not investing in him with the confidence that he's going to just show up day one and be a star. If he is, you hit the lottery. You didn't actually succeed in terms of your great analysis. It's you got lucky. And that's fine, but understand that that's not typical.
Yep. And do not build your roster on that fact.
Right.
Because you'll be hitting the lottery, just like James said. Yep.
Well, if you take one of them and say they're a bust, or even not even a bust, just not performing, you missed out on how many players that were actually going to score for you that you didn't take.
Yep.
Exactly.
He was going to.
Yep.
And how long is it going to take for you to let them go from your roster? You don't let go of them in week 2 when a veteran just busts and is nothing. You sit and you hold, and you just lose all of that opportunity of adding someone who's actually hot, who started early, who no one saw as being a great guy. And instead, you're just sitting on this asset that's not working. It's something that people don't like to think about because they're like, oh, my IDP finally hit in year 3. And it's like, you just wasted 2 years getting to him to hit. When you could have had hits the past 2 years and you were just sitting and waiting.
Yeah, you could have been in the playoffs. That's it. Ran that 32-team cap contract, full IDP, full PPR as a co-commish for 10 years. And I'm not going to drop too many names, but there was, at the time, I didn't even write. So there are known gurus out here in their respected fields that were actually in that league with me, and I did not know that they were gurus out here in Twitterverse until after I joined in. All right, had no idea they was writers, had nothing. Okay, so this one particular one, he is actually well known here on Twitter. I am not going to name him because he has he's just, let me say, he's well known. I watch this guy totally crash his roster every year. He was with us, I think it was about 8 of the 10 years, and he continuously crashed his roster, trading away known commodity, good players to keep drafting. He was determined to build through the draft. And that's what he writes about out here. All right. At least that's what he was. And I don't even follow him, put it that way. I wouldn't have followed him to begin with. But he never sniffed the playoffs. 32 teams, about 8 years, never sniffed the playoffs. As a matter of fact, I've seen a lot of teams doing that, wasting their time, always building. I'm always going to hit. There was one person, her name is Katie Flowers. She is a DV podcaster for the Under the Helmet. She was in the league for about 5 years. She took on a team, about 4 or 5 years. She took on a team that was dead last for us, came in as within 3 years. She was capable of doing it. Of course, she knew her shit. All right. I haven't talked about Katie Flowers in quite some time. But either way, she still did not completely do it with rookies. She had a lot of luck with the rookies that she did get, but she still split it in half. Veterans, rookies. It's the only person I've even seen come close. Kudos to Katie, by the way. But yeah, good stuff. It's hard to do, people. Rookies are luxuries.
Yes. Don't. Yeah. I mean, it's the off season too. People get antsy about teams. They want to do things. They want transactions. They just get bored and they just do dumb things. You know what I mean? Like they're going to trade up to get. You don't even know what you're getting, honestly. Like he said,
a great way to put it. They get bored.
Right. 100%. All right, so our last one is cornerbacks.
I'm sorry. Can we hit interior defensive line? I know I probably didn't have it in our email. I don't know
Yeah,
if you're
go.
prepared for that, James.
I'm
I
not.
apologize.
I'm always ready for anything, so
Yeah.
let's go.
All right. All right. So the interior defensive lines. I apologize, Roxanne.
All good.
Um,
You can write it down.
Yeah. So, we're talking interior, we're talking defensive tackles, nose tackles, which we know that there are basically, the only one that I can think of nose tackle wise or two would be a Veta Villa down in Tampa Bay. And then you got Green Bay, Kenny Clark. That's, I think, the only real usable IDP, possibly IDP nose tackles that are coming to mind. So I'm really talking about defensive tackles. I've got, the Raiders interior defensive line, in my opinion, they're crap. I don't know if they got anybody high, then I'm going to pay attention. The Texans could probably use somebody right now. The Cowboys, I would pay attention, but I would also be worried about how the Cowboys have a history of using their interior defensive lines. They are more to set up their linebackers and their edge rushers than they are to make plays. So the Bills could use an upgrade, somebody I would pay attention to. Believe it or not, the Browns, you guys just released rankings, right?
Yeah, Sheldon Richardson's on the wire.
Oh,
and,
Richardson, yeah.
I'll give you a little hint. They have my number one interior lineman going to them in the first round. I think
Really?
I agree with you completely, but continue.
I was going to finish it up with the Bears. The Bears, another interior that could stand. You can consider Hicks, but Hicks is getting older. But other than that, if they draft high, I suppose I might look at them this year for a potential breakout.
Yeah, I think all of those are very good options, and I don't disagree with any of them. I also think the Bengals could use a little bit of help on the interior. They also could use a little bit of help everywhere, so they might not address it.
Right. That's why they didn't make my list.
Exactly. They have a lot of needs.
Yep.
The Chargers also could take some inside help. Again, it's not something that's a huge address for them, but it's something that I think that they could do. So it's someone on my list. Also, Seattle, they've gone out and signed a bunch of people, but I don't like any of those people as being high-end guys. So if Seattle wants to move up, again, I know that they don't have a lot of early picks, and they trade away everybody every year. I think this year they've only got a handful of picks. But if they decide to spend some future draft capital to go acquire new draft capital, they might be investing on the interior of the line. But otherwise, I think you hit all the main points. No one else really springs to mind as needy. But those are all the teams that I think could make something happen early and often.
Right. Cool.
It's a lot of teams.
Yeah. There's a lot out there. Wait until we talk about cornerbacks.
And let's move on to quarterbacks now.
I don't know. Name half the league.
That's what I was just about to say. 16 teams.
Something like that. Yeah. Quarterbacks are going to be a hot commodity. I don't know if this is a good class for them. What do you think, James?
I agree with you on everything you just said. I think they're going to be a hot commodity.
We got to quit agreeing. We agree too much.
I think the high end of cornerbacks are going to be pretty good. Obviously, they always have a very high bust rate in general when it comes to getting drafted. So you're going to see some guys fail. We're going to find the next Justin Gilbert in this class, whether we want to admit it or not. He's there somewhere. We don't know who he is yet. But I also think on the back half, the later cornerbacks, they're not very good relative to other draft classes, later round cornerbacks. But also, every team needs cornerbacks because every team uses wide receivers more than ever. So they need more coverage guys. And since they need more coverage guys, they need more cornerbacks in general. So like you said, you could list off probably every team in the NFL, and they could be like, yeah, I'll take another cornerback. That's fine by me, versus saying, oh, no, we're going to invest somewhere else. So it's almost not even worth a listing because every team fits that description.
Right.
Didn't say I didn't have a list. Let's start at the bottom. Washington. Texans, Steelers, Seahawks, Saints, especially with Lattimore now. Well, you can always throw Raiders in there. Panthers, Packers, Lions, Giants, Eagles, Cowboys, Chargers,
I'm not even
Browns.
writing this
Well, how
down.
do you feel about the Browns?
I mean, the Browns need some depth at cornerback. I think that they've got good high end, so they don't have to spend a pick early. But they also have the luxury of not needing to really address anything early if they don't want to. They don't want to go defensive line. They can just go cornerback and get somebody and not actually have to worry about filling that need later. You can get a 5th round defensive tackle who you can plug in if you like him as a short-term burst guy and not a real long-term project. That guy exists somewhere out there. I'm not an evaluator, but they can go get him. So in a weird way, I'm happy with whatever the Browns do, and if they address cornerback, fine by me.
Yeah, and with that secondary, if they do have a weakness there, they have some real. I think they got a lot of. Overall, it's 95% secondary strong, so it's not going to hurt them in the long run. And when you got a pass rush like they're probably going to put out with Clooney and Garrett, that actually really benefits that secondary even more. So that allows them less time they have to do their job is basically what that means. We could throw Bengals in there, of course, and Bears. 49ers. I don't know. I probably missed some. Cardinals. Yeah, Cardinals. They need Patrick's gone. Patrick Peterson.
Yes.
Yeah, you could throw out the Rams. You could throw out the Patriots. You could throw out the Buccaneers because they don't really have a lot of needs anywhere else. They might go DB very early.
Jets. Yep.
Jets. I think you mentioned the Lions. You could go Packers. You could go Vikings. There are so many teams.
Everybody need a cornerback. Everybody need. Maybe they can convert some of these safeties, huh?
Yeah, exactly. Steelers, they need one. They need 2, maybe. Joe Hayden's getting up there in age.
Yeah.
Houston doesn't have any picks, but maybe they go DB. Yeah. Tennessee, just everyone, every team, every team.
Make a case for every team. So I would think, can all agree Patrick Surtain's going to go first.
That's
what round do you
consensus,
think?
I think.
Yeah, I think it's consensus. I don't think it's a lock, but I do have him first off my board. I've got him in the top 10, which doesn't sound
top
like
10?
I do, which is not that steamy because everyone has that. But also when you look at how many quarterbacks are going to go and how many teams need offensive line, he's actually very high off the board when you eliminate those 2 players for me. But it's still just top 10 versus being a top 5 guy or being even higher because some teams need that. And somebody out there is desperately wanting Patrick Surtain, and maybe they'll get him, but I don't think he's going to go super high because of those other needs.
And for those of you that might be looking for a cornerback for your lineups in IDP, that is, these high-profile guys, that might be one that I actually suggest that you might be able to get some production out of because there's one thing about cornerbacks. They are going to be tested by the opposing quarterbacks. Now, if they're going to find out if this guy's a shutdown corner or not, and they're going to do it in his rookie season to see what they can do to this guy. So this, a lot of times when it comes to a cornerback, will allow a lot of opportunities for that cornerback, that rookie to mess up and recover and make the tackle. So just a little tidbit there. I'm not a huge cornerback guy either. Put them about where it is with rookies. I think they're streamable, but just something for those of you that might be looking for that. Especially if you see somebody drafted, it's put across from say Ramsey, or Ramsey might be an exaggeration because he's so good, but there's not that many of him out there. But if you get put across from a really good veteran cornerback, and they get a starting job, you can figure that the opposing quarterback is going to hit him twice as hard every game than what they are going to go to the other side of the field. So keep that in mind.
100%.
I'd like to ask that question before we wrap this up.
Ask your question. We're at almost 50 minutes, so we should.
All right. And people, please go subscribe and read that scroll across the bottom while we address this last one, please. I just wanted to ask, who do we think are the worst couple of defenses in the league that can afford to go IDP early that we should really pay attention to? Who would make you stand up and pay attention?
I mean, I've kind of hit the nail on the head earlier, and I keep talking about them, but the Indianapolis Colts, I think if they go early and often, you can get a lot of impact guys right away because I think the rest of that depth chart doesn't have guys who are going to hold that spot until midseason when they unleash the rookies. I think they could go the full 17 games as we have now. So that's someone who's really eyeing me up, I guess.
Right.
San Francisco's secondary, also, their cornerbacks are not good. Their safeties are not good. If they address those, then they can play right away and also play in your fantasy lineup. The Eagles, but they need help everywhere. I don't have confidence they're going to address the defensive side first and foremost. But if they did, I could stand up and pay attention because, like you've mentioned before, that linebacking core, it's full of a bunch of guys who can do it if they're there, but aren't going to do beyond just the general expectation of making a tackle.
Yeah,
And
they're not Pro Bowlers. We're never going to see any of those guys in the Pro Bowl. Yep.
So those were the three teams that hit.
I would say Colts, same reason. Atlanta, but I guess they could with the fourth. I just don't know that they go defense the fourth pick. I guess they could.
No.
And they probably should.
Well,
the Jets, they need some help.
Yep.
They always need help. They're so inconsistent and just that defense is actually a mess kind of over there.
Yeah. And hitting on that, I mean, it's a good, the Jets defense is probably going to spend a lot of time on the field this year. So those are the type of IDP people that we also want to focus. They don't have to be good. They just need a name. They need to be a full-time player. So they are definitely one of those teams.
Right.
Yep. In general, I think it's been covered. I mean, I don't know. Raiders possibly. Something's got to break with those Raiders. Gruden is never going to get that team anywhere if he does not fix that defense. I know there's still a lot to go, but he's done a lot better with that offensive side of the ball than he has the defensive. Jets is a gold mine. I'm starting to be kind of more of a believer with the Colts situation, 49ers secondary. Yep. I mean, it was just a general question I thought I'd ask, and I think James and you hit it right on top. So sweet.
All right. Well, thank you for joining us on this Friday. Make sure you go subscribe to our YouTube channel, YouTube channel. Try to win a free subscription to the draft guide. Everybody have a safe and wonderful weekend, and we will be back Tuesday morning.
Bye.